Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and in this video we're going to be talking about the lore of Final Fantasy XV and its world, Eos. If you've played the game but have questions, hopefully this video will provide some answers. Likewise, if you've not played the game but would like to learn more about its world, I hope this video will sate your curiosity. That said, there will of course be large spoilers for all parts of the game, beginning to end. At time of writing, the game has been out for a month or two. As for how future updates and DLC will impact our understanding of the game, we'll have to wait and see. One main question prompted this video: who is Ardyn Izunia? That is the primary question we'll be trying to answer here. Of course, as with Dark Souls, much of Final Fantasy XV's story is left intentionally vague, so that you might make up your own mind. And just before we get started, I'd like to credit the 15 subreddit, the Game FAQs page, and two users in particular, Nayuk Hut for consolidating all of the cosmogony in-game articles into a web source, and MGAR-SF for providing excellent information and translations of the 15 Ultimania guide. That out of the way, let's get started. Near the end of Final Fantasy XV, we are treated to a cutscene wherein Ardyn finally reveals his true nature to us, of a sorts. As many people have noted, however, that cutscene is unfortunately afflicted by some terrible audio mixing, so let's start off by reviewing it, shall we? Noctis finally stumbles across that which he has been seeking so long, the crystal. Unharmed by the light, the chosen king indeed. Allow me to regale you with a tale. In an age long past, an incurable scourge ravaged mankind. A tiny menace that twisted men into monsters, the likes of which you've seen. In Lucis lived a saviour that could cure the afflicted. His body would come to host myriad demons that countless lives be spared. But a jealous king, one not yet chosen by the crystal, ostracized and demonized this healer of the people, making a true monster of him. I gave you my name earlier, but you should know that it was not the name given to me at birth. Ardyn Lucis Calum is my proper name. You'll never guess whose name Izunia was. Noct, killing you as a mortal will bring me scant satisfaction. Claim the crystal's power, arise as its champion. Only once the crystal and king are no more, can I know redemption. So what can we take away from this? The implication behind these words is simple enough. Long ago, when the Star Scourge spread throughout Eos, Ardyn, himself of the same line as Noctis, would heal the afflicted by taking the scourge into his own body. Note, Ardyn does not claim that he was a king, nor does he claim that the king of Lucis was the one who ostracized him, merely that a king ostracized him. He also remarks that the king was not chosen by the crystal and made a monster out of Ardyn. Of course, how much truth can there be to his words? No doubt there is some, but it has quite possibly been tainted and coloured by Ardyn's own bitterness over the years. This is where the cosmogony books come in useful. I'll also be drawing information from the official guide which I have on my desk here. It features a very handy timeline of events. Keep in mind, the cosmogony books date back around 2000 years. Here's a rough timeline of the events leading up to the game. More than 2000 years ago, although we do not know how much longer, there was an ancient civilization known as Solheim. Wondrous technology, magitech and airships at their disposal. It would seem likely that some of the ruins we find in the game are ruins of this civilization. During this time, the six gods, Titan, Rama, Shiva, Leviathan, Bahamut and Ifrit, were united and fought alongside humans. However, Ifrit betrayed the other gods and the War of the Gods claimed Solheim, the civilization falling in the process. It is conceivable that the meteor featured in the Heart of Duskai was a direct result of this war. The Ultimania claims that it fell during ancient times, and Meteor has long been one of the most powerful spells in Final Fantasy. When cast by Teller in Final Fantasy IV in a last-ditch attempt to destroy Golbez, it cost him his life. In 7, it was so important as to be featured in the game's logo. Sephiroth claims the black materia and uses it to summon Meteor, which, had it not been stopped, could have well destroyed most of the planet. And in 14, Meteor is not only the concept name for the CGI hero in the opening cinematics, but also the lesser moon Dalamud, which is in fact no moon, but an ancient prison of the Elder Primal, Bahamut, its arrival forever changing the world of Eorzea. But did Ifrit call Meteor in 15? Did Meteor bring with it the Star Scourge? Personally, I choose to believe that is the case. There's nothing in the game to confirm as such, but from my perspective it is a logical connection to make. You are of course free to make up your own minds. I find it appropriate that the Star Scourge would come from the stars, although you might rightly say it is called the Star Scourge because it is the scourge of the star Eos. And what is the Star Scourge? Tiny organisms that absorb light and transform humans into monsters. They also appear to reanimate the dead to some extent, as evidenced by Ravus' corpse attacking us, and Ardyn himself being effectively immortal. We're getting quite Resident Evil here, aren't we? This is also the source of the nights growing longer, as the demons absorb light particles. Once enough people have been infected, the world is blanketed in a thick shroud that blocks out all light. You have probably noticed that during the World of Ruins segment, the sun is still present and visible. Indeed, some players have managed to glitch out of the final battle and have flown through the blanket and discovered the normal blue sky up above. However, let's get back to the timeline. 2,000 years ago, sometime after the fall of Solheim, the gods granted the King of Lucis the ring and the crystal. He was told to guard the crystal, for it would one day choose the true king. 12 statues were built in Lucis, each one to house the soul of a dead king, forming the old wall that is featured during the climax of Kingsglaive, the Knights of the Round. Here is where things get interesting. Were those statues built for 12 dead kings, or 12 future kings? Unfortunately, we have no way of knowing, but think about it this way. During his battle with Noctis, Ardyn uses the Armiger much like Noctis can. Noctis summons the weapons of past kings and queens of Lucis. I think personally it would make more sense that these 12 kings existed before Ardyn, not after. For starters, it seems odd to make 12 statues for future kings that have yet to be born, and if we're talking about 2,000 years, there's going to be more than 12 kings in 2,000 years, right? Why only 12? How would those who built the statues have known what royal arms the future kings and queens would wield? Take the shuriken that the queen uses. You can get that weapon in Final Fantasy XV, and the statue of the queen is also using it. You can of course wave this away with prophecies and magic, and I could easily be swayed, but right now, I'm leaning towards these being 12 kings prior to Ardyn. He never said that he was the first, or a king at all. The Blade of the Mystic remarks that a king rose to protect the world with the Oracle, and the timeline tells us that the king and the Oracle were created during the Ancient Years, more than 2,000 years ago in other words. Several of the weapons remark on kings working with the Oracle. It was only after the fall of Solheim that the gods granted the King of Lucis the ring and the crystal. They could already summon weapons before that. How does this fit in with Ardyn and Luna? If we had kings and oracles existing before Ardyn, that could explain why Ardyn was ostracized. Oracles were chosen by the gods to heal the Scourge. How do they do that? Well, we see Luna healing a man of the Scourge by drawing it from his body into hers. Coupled with her later conversation with Ravus, it is suggested that the act of taking the Scourge into the body kills the Oracle. But in Ardyn's case, it didn't kill him, it made him immortal. Was he ostracized because he took the role of Oracle and subverted it? On the other hand, we can look at it from the perspective that Ardyn was the first Oracle in some sense, the first to absorb the plague, but following his perversion, the gods created oracles more akin to Luna, although I don't personally think that's the case. Either way, Ardyn tells us that the king was not chosen by the crystal. That's true, because Noctis is the chosen one, the king of kings. But who was this jealous king? Some believe he was not a Calum, but an Izunia. Others believe he was a Calum, Izunia Calum. Ardyn's line, "You'll never guess whose name Izunia was," seems to have thrown some people for a loop, suggesting there is some importance to it. Upon listening to it, many times in a few different dubs. I think that is mostly a result of localization. I don't know for certain, obviously, but I feel the tone of the line should be more akin to "Who was Izunia again?", suggesting Ardyn is teasing its importance, or lack thereof. It could well be the name of the jealous king, but nothing in this exchange, to me, suggests that Noctis is not truly a Calem. I do believe Ardyn is his ancestor, and that is supposed to be the big reveal. Just about everything supports that. It is a big shock moment revolving around Ardyn revealing he is your ancestor. Not that Noctis isn't truly a Calem. Incidentally, Ardyn entered Niflheim 34 years ago. That is quite a long time. You would think somebody would have noticed that he doesn't age, but maybe he had ways around that. And on this subject, let us not forget about the Draconian. Bahamut refers to Ardyn as the Usurper, and claims that he was impure of body and soul, thus forbidden to ascend. Why call him Usurper? What is it that Ardyn usurped? The role of Oracle, or the role of King? The King of Kings, did he usurp Noctis's chosen role? See, Ardyn remarks that the king was not chosen. Did Ardyn believe that he was the chosen one instead? Perhaps as a younger brother of this king? Remember, the kings of Lucis weren't supposed to use the crystal, they are explicitly there to guard it, but it would appear only the king himself is privy to such information, meaning that it's entirely possible Ardyn thought, as a younger brother or son or otherwise relative, that he should be the chosen one. Before the final battle, he seems intent on referring to himself as a king. The throne seats only one, and this is a battle of kings. And during the battle he sneers that you are the chosen king, but a second choice, at best. So that would most likely tie in with Bahamut referring to him as Usurper. The fact that he, upon his defeat, asks Noctis if he will erase him from history once more could lend credence to the theory that he was the true Calem, but I do believe it is more a case of the king at the time removing any mention of Ardyn, to hide his acts. Indeed, you'll find nothing much referring to him in the cosmogony. It still remains a mystery just why the gods thought him so impure, however. If Ardyn was healing those of the Scourge, was he truly so evil? Was it the case that he once had good intentions only to be twisted by the Star Scourge? Or perhaps he was after that all along, seeking to be chosen by the crystal, wishing to ascend only to be denied? The only way to destroy Ardyn, however, is through Providence. Although the game does not make this abundantly clear, I believe this is how it works. The crystal contains the heart of the star, or to put it another way, the heart of Eos, the heart of the planet, all of the light of the planet contained therein. Noctis must gather all of this light into the ring and combine it with the power of the royal arms and use it to purify the darkness within Ardyn once and for all. And what about Ifrit? Ardyn does not seem to share his contempt for humans in so much that it drives him, rather spite is what drives Ardyn, an obsession to end his own life and the line of Lucis along with it. And as it would happen, he achieves both of these goals, most like. Perhaps it isn't too important what drives Ifrit. The guide does mention that Ardyn is serving him more so than the other way around, and judging from both Shiva's dialogue and the scars on his chest, Ifrit has been killed once before. Perhaps that accounts for why both Shiva and Ifrit are much smaller. We find Shiva's body, and it is enormous as in keeping with the other astrals. Some years ago she awakened and attacked Niflheim, eventually being killed after destroying most of their forces, and it was after this that they more so moved to Magitek soldiers. And Ifrit was presumably defeated during the War of the Gods. Perhaps when an astral is killed, they shrink. Back to Ardyn though. Once defeated by Noctis, he awaits in the Beyond. Noctis himself then gathers the souls of the past kings into himself, just as he gathered the light of the crystal into the ring. We know that Noctis is able to use the royal arms. All throughout the game, every time you obtain a royal arm, it impales Noctis. But here, at the end of the game, he appears to summon the souls of the kings, and we know from the 12 statues, the Knights of the Round, that the souls continue to exist in some form, and then each one strikes and impales Noctis with their royal arm, and when he himself moves to the Beyond, the weapons emerge from within Noctis and are claimed by the kings. Through some means or another, this allows them to travel to the Beyond and strike down Ardyn once and for all. Which leads to another question. Did Noctis die? Did Prompto, Gladio and Ignis die? Both of these are left up to the player to decide, one more so than the other. Some think that the friends appearing in the Beyond means that they must have died. Personally, I do not think that is the case. It was more of a symbolic representation to my eyes. They weren't actually there. Instead, we are seeing them and Luna from Ardyn's perspective. Ardyn, who was always alone, against Noctis, his friends and his father. Remember how the Omen trailer seemed to suggest what might happen should Noctis travel alone? Clearly his buddies, his companions, his Kingsglaive, his brothers were very important. Incidentally, the voice at the end of that Omen trailer, is that Bahamut? But yes, it is open-ended. I do not personally believe Ignis and Co died, but what about Noctis? The very ending of the game is even more vague. When we see Noctis and Luna seated upon the throne, Noctis is lacking the ring, but off to the side we can see that the wall appears to be repaired. There are many ways to take this. Luna and Noctis have ascended, they are having a Final Fantasy of their own. Or they have truly been brought back from death by the gods. Bahamut claimed the blood price must be paid, and the kings told Nyx of his own blood price. Both Noctis and Nyx paid that price. We see Noctis disintegrating into crystals, but we only saw Nyx beginning to crystallize. Is it unreasonable to think that the gods might have done this largely to test Noctis, and given him the life and lost youth as a reward? Because he did die, but that was to say nothing about him coming back to life afterwards. Or does he rule in this dreamland with Luna? I am undecided, but what do you think? If you have any thoughts or questions, please do leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.